Hello, welcome back to Too Many Books. My name is Sean, and today we're going to do a book comparison, which is also a chapbook comparison. It occurred to me that I had done unboxings for both of these. This is The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, but I never really showed them side by side. So I do have these two fine press editions, one from Suntup, one from No Reply Press, and I figured, you know what, let's showcase both of them. Now, in the instance of this book, both are completely sold out, so you'd have to go to the secondary market to find either of them. But hey, if you want a letterpress edition of this story, these are probably going to be the ways to go. And I'm sure there's probably other fancy editions out there as well, especially over the years. I mean, Edgar Allan Poe has been published ad nauseum over the past century, so I'm sure there's other letterpress editions, but these are the two most recent ones that come to mind, especially within the small press, fine press scene of today. Up first and foremost, we have the Suntup edition with a wood engraving by Rosemary Feit Covey, or Covey. This was published back in 2023 alongside their Poe collection, an absolutely massive, dictionary-sized encyclopedia volume that compiled all of the tales and poetry of Edgar Allan Poe. That was printed offset, but this edition was printed letterpress. It was 200 copies. But only 155 were for sale. It doesn't specify in the back here. It was 200 copies, and I believe one copy came with each of the lettered editions of that whole collection. So there was really only about 150 copies remaining for sale to the public. It is, of course, signed by Feit Covey as well. It's a nice little sewn binding chapbook, printed in Hahnemühle Biblio paper, hand set in Foundry Bauer Bodini type, and printed letterpress at the Kelly Winterton Press for Suntup Editions. And of course, it does have that wood engraving, which is printed directly from the block. So each one could technically be ever so slightly different with these actual engravings. You have the original engraving, and then it's almost kind of relief press, not letterpress per se. You inked it up, and which is kind of the same thing as letterpress, although handled slightly differently. And then tipped into the book there. There was also a select few of a different style of engraving that Rosemary Feit Covey had done, but that was distributed at random to those who had ordered the volume. Up next here, we have the numbered edition from No Reply Press. Now, this is the third of the fine press editions of Edgar Allan Poe that No Reply has done, the most recent of them. Believe it or not, this is actually printed on the same paper as the Suntup edition. They both use the Hahnemühle Biblio paper. This one does feature more illustrations, this time by Rūta Kuzmickas. And I gotta say, I do love the typography, especially on the title here with The Telltale Heart. As far as the printing itself goes, I will say that it's a definitely more pronounced letterpress printing in the No Reply one, which I guess traditionally is not what you want. I mean, traditionally letterpress printing is supposed to be just a nice tight little bite with the paper, not necessarily a huge effort into it. So I guess in that regard, the Suntup edition does technically win, although if you wanted to actually straight up feel the impressions, then No Reply is the way to go. With the Rūta's artwork, that is also letterpress printed, so you can actually kind of see it just absolutely stamped in there. And there are, of course, multiple pieces by Rūta. So that way you are getting all sorts of illustrations, and thus actually make it a longer chapbook as well. This does obviously have more pages than the Suntup edition, but the trim size also comes into play with that in addition to. Right there's the Hahnemühle watermark, beautifully seen right on that page. Every sheet has the watermark, but it should be noted that every sheet is not the same as every page within the story. Each sheet is then folded and gathered or cut down or trimmed down. So really you're not going to see this deckled edge on every page or the watermark on every page. This one is technically more widely available, but only by a sliver. There was 250 numbered copies, which is printed on the same Han Mule Biblio, bound in Papeterie Saint Armand Cecil Courant's paper. Nice kind of, not cave paper per se, but it's almost the same, almost feels like the same binding that was actually used for another Suntup title, which was the numbered edition of The Auctioneer by Joan Sampson. There was also a lettered edition, which were printed on Velki Lucini and bound in Claire Guillaume's marbled fantasy paper. I've never seen one of those. I mean, being 26 copies, it is quite a rarity, and there's a wide range of collectors from No Reply Press, so I haven't seen any pictures of that one yet. I imagine it's going to be spectacular, but the numbered edition was sufficient enough for me. Page count-wise, you are looking at 16, 17 pages with the final illustration, 18 with the colophon page at the end there of the No Reply edition versus, 14? 14 of the Suntup edition. Curiously enough, and one thing I can't really tell, putting them side by side, at least maybe it's just my eyesight that can't tell, but the fonts, the typeset used in No Replies must be a little bit tinier, right? Like, maybe you can tell me what you think. Right now I'm holding the Suntup up a little bit higher, so, it's kind of hard to do a side-by-side. But the typeset is very close in size, but I would have to say that it must be smaller in the No Reply Press one, just because if you look, for example, at this first paragraph, even with the reduced trim size, the larger margins, it's still roughly the same size paragraph-wise as that first paragraph in Suntup, which has, as I mentioned, a much larger trim size, less margin size than the No Reply one. But anyways, I think it's a fun side by side. Obviously, if you just want to read the Telltale Heart, and you don't necessarily need a fine press edition, you can just read it for free online. Like, this video is clearly not for you. I apologize. I mean, you can find Poe volumes for absolutely cheap out there. This is really for those who want to go above and beyond with their Poe collections. Get a nice fancy letterpressed edition. They both definitely have their pros and cons, whether it be trim size or your own favoritism in artwork, or even your preference in just the style and presentation of the volume. But given that there were two recent editions of The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, I figured it'd be fun to showcase them here side by side. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't read The Telltale Heart, I mean, obviously I tried to do a little more of a book review in this, but Telltale Heart is an absolutely classic tale from, almost 200 years ago, right? This was published in, 1830? I know it has the date in here. 1843. So yeah, we're looking at almost 200 years. 180 years since The Telltale Heart was published. It's public domain. You've probably read it in school. It's an absolute masterpiece of a short story of just classic Poe. Definitely worth checking out and reading if you haven't done so. But if you wanted a fancy edition, these are probably the two fancier ones to go without, springing for a lettered edition from No Reply Press. Be sure to subscribe to the channel here. I do at least one book review or comparison video much like this a week. Plenty of unboxing videos in between here and there, and that does include plenty of unboxings from Suntup Editions and No Reply Press, both of which have their own playlists of unboxings on the channel, so be sure to check those out. But anyways, thank you again very much for watching. Check out Suntup and No Reply Press, and we'll see you around next time.